Are you enjoying the Mindset Playground? Well, visit my website at louannehunt.ca. That's louannehunt.ca and join the Insiders Club and be the first to know about all of the upcoming podcasts, the guests on my show, some tips and tricks on how to live a great life from the inside out, and of course, the Clarity Keys method, which is coming up in October. I can't wait to see you there. Sign up today. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mindset Playground. You're going to get your daily dose of positivity. And I'm your host, LouAnne Hunt. And I am so excited that you have joined me today on my Playground podcast because you know what? I have such a great guest. I know I say that every day or every time I do a podcast, but it's really true. I love all of my guests, and they all have an amazing story that spins into inspiration. How does that sound? Well, anyway, today I have such a great guest. Her name is June. And I got to tell you just a little tiny bit about this guest because she is actually a mentor of mine. When I was studying through the Jack Canfield group, she was one of my coaches. And so she was amazing and she gave me some great tips and tricks. So, June, how are you today?
Hello. So good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I am just so thrilled that you took time out of your busy schedule, and I know you're busy, to come and speak with me today and play with me on the playground today. And boy, are we going to have some fun. So let's talk about you. So, June, let's start off with something simple. Can you tell our audience what makes June so amazing?
Well, that's a hard one. So, well, first of all, I'm not that amazing. I have an identical twin. So I have somebody else who's just like me in the world. Some people love that idea, and some people are very scared when I tell them that. But no, anyway.
Is it really you?
Yeah.
Is it really you? Looks like you.
Well, it's so great to be here, LouAnne. And most people know me from my website and from some of my training. So hello to everybody who joined the podcast. Thank you so much for being here as well. I started off in the Coast Guard when I was still in college. I enlisted in the United States Coast Guard as a deckhand. And then fast forward 35 years, I was captain of 2 ships and commanded at 5 different pay grades, 5 different levels. And I retired as a 2-star admiral, so like a 2-star general, the same rank as a 2-star general. And so I was the first woman in the United States Coast Guard to go from a deckhand to an admiral. And so now what I've done is I've really transitioned all of those things that helped me through my career and started my next chapter in helping other people transition those same or transit.
Transition. Yeah.
Transition.
We know what you mean.
Yes. Travel those same things, whether they're in retail, whether they're on an assembly line. My daughter just started in the workforce and she's at the very entry level, and I'm like, honey, this is going to be a great story when you're CEO. So
there you go. And did you know when you started as a deckhand, like, first of all, how did you, like, was there an ad in the paper, or like, how did you get into the whole ship business?
Well, so that's a really interesting story. So I saw a Coast Guard commercial at like 2 o'clock in the morning because I ask everybody, have you ever seen a Coast Guard commercial? No, nobody has ever seen a Coast Guard commercial because the Coast Guard doesn't have the ad oomph, doesn't have the resources that the other services have. So very often you don't see a Coast Guard. Anyway, so I saw a Coast Guard commercial and it said, start a legacy. And it was about this family who was out in the Outer Banks who were rescuing people voluntarily before our country was even a country. And the family was called the Midget family. And those people have been midget, not short people, but that's their last name. And those people have been out in the Outer Banks know that that's a very famous name in that region. There's Midget Realty and Midget Ice Cream, and and part of that family, that's what they did was man these, and to this day, there are still midgets in the United States Coast Guard. And in fact, when I became admiral, I'm going to choke up here. When I became the admiral in charge of the Great Lakes, we do a change of command ceremony. It's me and the person who I'm relieving, right? The person who I was relieving was Fred Midget. And in my remarks, I'm like, I have lived the commercial. I've come full circle. And it wasn't until that moment in time when I got up to do my remarks, my speech, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. I've just lived the commercial. And so having the opportunity to help people do that same thing is really cool. But no, I did not have any idea. I joined the Coast Guard because it was a really bad economy at the time. And it was like the only job I could find.
Oh,
And so it was
wow.
just a job for the first couple years. And then when I got into, I started actually in the reserves, which is part-time. And then when I graduated college, I'm like, this is not too bad. I'll go full time. So then I went full time just for the first 3 or 4 years. And my contract was a 3-year contract at the time. And I fully anticipated getting out after that and getting a real job.
Wow. And like, were your parents like part of the Coast Guards as well, and you just wanted to continue the legacy?
Not at all. So I come from a family of six. I'm number 5 of 6. And as I already mentioned, I have an identical twin sister. So all the way through high school, I got compared to my older siblings, like, oh, you're not as smart as John, or you're not as fast of a swimmer as Jim. And so when I saw the Coast Guard commercial, I'm like, that's it. Nobody in my family has ever been in the Coast Guard. They don't know my twin sister. I'm not compared to anybody. And so it was my like rebel moment. Stepping out of the shadows underneath my family. So my brother did go to the Air Force Academy, so I was familiar with the services. And my father was in Korea. Well, he was in Japan during the Korean conflict, and he was a weatherman in Japan. So I was fortunate. I talked to a lot of ladies, World War I, World War II ladies, that era, and they said, I always wanted to join the service. My father prohibited me, or my family wouldn't encourage me. And so I feel very fortunate that I didn't even know that that was a thing. I didn't even know that like family would say no. Like I'm 18 years old, I can do what I want kind of a thing. But yeah, there's some families that say absolutely not. And so knowing that, I feel very blessed to have had the family I had with that kind of encouragement.
Wow, that's amazing because I'm sure that, you know, everything that you've learned, and we're going to get into some amazing questions here. I'm sure everything you've learned has just been, like you said, you were the first. And so you had nothing to guide you either. So sometimes it can be kind of detrimental when you don't, like they always say, success leaves clues, right?
Right.
Robin Williams says that all, or yeah, Tony Robbins. Sorry, Tony Robbins says that all the time. Success leaves clues, and you should follow the clues.
Hmm.
And it's so true. I do believe that, but it must be so difficult when it's first for everything. Would
Right.
you say that it was a
It
little
was,
trickier?
but what was interesting was I didn't know, and that wasn't really my focus.
Ah,
So I was an admiral for almost 2 years, 3 years before I realized that I was the first admiral to go from the enlisted ranks to officer. Like it never struck me that that was a thing, or that I look back on those things. So there were times when I knew that. When I took over my first ship, the Coast Guard cutter Cape Morgan out of Portland, Maine, normally the person who is coming off of the ship, the local news will interview them. They've been in the community for 2 years. They talk about all the rescues they did, all the success they had on the tour, right? And that's a really big thing. And you lead the news whenever you're leaving, because people want to say thank you for all the work you did for particularly the fishermen. When I came on board, all of the news people after the ceremony came and swarmed me, and I was like overwhelmed, like I'm not the important one here. I was just the requirement, like you're supposed to be talking to that guy. He did all of the work. I have no idea. I'm barely able to get from my house to work right now, without the GPS. And so it was almost embarrassing, but because I was the first woman captain, in the greater New England area. So there were times in my career where I didn't bring it upon myself, but other people thought it was a big deal.
Really? So you
Yeah.
didn't even realize that you were such a big deal.
I didn't know I was a big deal or a big pickle.
Well, there you
Big pickle.
go. Well, that's great. So I did come up with some questions that I've just really wanted to know a little bit more about your background and how you got into it.
Mhm.
So the first question that I have is, and I know that we've already heard this, that you've achieved so many historic firsts for women in the Coast Guard, including being the first enlisted woman to rise to Rear Admiral. What mindset and strategies helped you break through the barriers and lead with confidence in spaces where few women had gone before? So, kind of an extension of the question that I just asked you.
Mhm. So one of what I would say, particularly early in my career, there weren't a lot of women. And I had a mantra that I just kind of said in my own head, and I got it actually from a tape called Self-Esteem and Peak Performance from Jack Canfield back in the 90s. But what he used was a phrase, no matter what you do or say to me, I'm still a worthwhile person. No matter what you do to me, no matter what you say to me, I'm still a worthwhile person. I gain my worthiness from myself and why I'm here, not from what you think of me. And so when I got things like, oh, you're just a woman, or no, you can't do that, it actually charged me up. So I later learned when my husband asked my dad for my hand in marriage, because it was a thing back then. And what my dad's response was, she's really stubborn. And if you tell her she can't do something, yeah, you're going to lose that bet every single time. And so that mantra with my personality type of persistence and no matter what, just a no matter what mindset, I think is really what propelled me forward. No matter what you do or say to me, no matter what you do or say to me, I'm still a worthwhile person. I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying the best I can. Because as a woman working in something like the seafarers, right? There are heavy things like wet mooring lines that you're trying to haul on. They're heavy. Can a guy do that, faster? Sometimes they have higher muscle mass, but that doesn't mean I'm not able to do it. It just takes me two more pulls than it takes you. So just that kind of a mindset can
Oh,
help
wow.
no matter what you do or say to me.
And do you still go by that mantra?
I do. I do. I'm a little bit better at listening to feedback though. So I think that needs to be healthily paired with, so if somebody's offering you feedback, particularly in a loving way, right? Like, hey, you came across a little harsh there. I'm like, ooh, okay. So I try not to be just this tunnel vision, right? Because you can be, right? So that just becomes arrogance, right? Without listening to any of the feedback. And
I don't think it's arrogance. I just think that the perfectionist in you is just kind of will come out. And I'm not just saying in you, because that's my problem too. It's the perfectionist,
mm,
and if somebody has something to say about something that I'm doing, and it might be it sounds kind of negative, but it's not really, they're just pointing it out. I take so much to heart.
yes,
And
I get
that's,
this. I get this. Ooh, yeah, yeah,
yeah, you want to please. I'm a people pleaser.
right.
And so I've really had to work on that. So I get it. I
Yeah.
really get
Did you have a mantra when you started your career?
it. Yeah, I hope I can survive. I just hope I survive this. I don't want to turn into people that are here. I work for the
Wow.
government, and the one thing, and I have a book coming out soon, and the one thing that I talk about in the book is my career and how I had to pivot because everything has changed in my life and I had to learn to pivot. And I just found that, and I put right in there that I didn't want to be one of them. I didn't want to be that, you know, that person who goes home and thinks about work all the time, or that person who doesn't have a life
Right.
outside of work. Because my whole thing in my chapter is, like, it's okay to retire. Because I don't know, but if you know people like that, like maybe even, in the Coast Guard, there's probably people who that's all they did their whole life. So they can't retire because, they wouldn't be who they are if they retire. And that's my whole purpose behind my story is, wow, you have to definitely have a life outside of work.
Right.
Work is work.
Right.
Okay? It's your paycheck.
Right.
Work is your paycheck. Work is your retirement plan. Work is your sick time. Work is your vacation time. It is not your life.
Right.
So,
Do you have a working title for your book?
yes, it's called the well, it's actually it's not my book. It's Kate Butler's book. And it's called The Ripple Effect. So,
Ah,
and what it is, yeah, I know. It's so true. What
nice. I love
happens
that.
in your life will, cause a ripple effect. And we all know that how it just kind of and so my life story in that book is so true. How one little decision over here has, spun into this decision in the end.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's so true, the ripple effect. So
Hmm.
yeah.
It's
Anyway,
funny you say that because, you were talking about work is work. I learned very early that the Coast Guard is what I do. It's not who I am.
absolutely.
And so as you said, I met people who were exactly like that. It was who they were, and then when they retired, they completely lost their identity. And some military people, when they retire, it's like, what should I call them? They're like Admiral. I'm like, they're retired. Like, let it go. Like like the Frozen song. It's
So
okay.
what do we call you, June?
June is good. I often so on sometimes podcasters or when people introduce me at my large keynote event, they're like, "What do we call you?" And I'm like, "Look, I spent 35 years as a woman in the Coast Guard. I have been called a lot of really nasty things. Like as long as it's not one of those things, good."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
that's how I feel. And that's what this story is all about because I think it's so true. And that's the importance of it
yeah,
is be yourself, not what you do.
yeah. Exactly,
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Well, and I often use the analogy of 1 degree of separation. So if you have 1 degree of separation and you go a foot, you're going to be off by 0.2 inches. If you go a mile, you're going to be off by over a mile is like 92 feet. But if you go 1 degree of separation from the earth to the moon, it's like over 5,000 feet, 4,169 miles that you'll be off. And so I use it in the opposite. Like, how can we move where you are just
Yes.
1 degree of separation? Because in 5 years, you'll be way farther down and way different than the current path that if you just stay on the current path. And so I talk about that more as a motivation. Like, how about we move you toward that? And what if,
Yeah, and for you, a really good one would be the set of the sail
yeah, there you go.
by
I do
Jim
use,
Rohn.
yeah, I do use a lot of nautical things. There's a lot of nautical parallels,
Yeah.
that many people don't realize, So one of the
And
things one of the things
go.
I so let me just dive into one. For example, people go, "You're an anchor," and I'm like, "Ooh, I don't like that." They're like, what do you mean that? That means you're strong. That means you're. I'm like, no, it usually means stop, right? And what happens
Yeah.
if you're on a boat and you have an anchor and you can't pull it up? You have to cut it off, and
Ah,
it stays behind, right? It's no different than the brakes on your car, the brakes on a bike. The calipers, they go like this, and all of us have had it where we didn't oil them well enough and the calipers stuck. What happened? We went like head over heels on our bicycle, right? An anchor is a maneuvering tool. An anchor is a temporary hold, right? Like a pause, and then to move on. And so I often use that anchor. So when you're talking about anchors, it's a maneuvering tool. Brakes are a maneuvering tool, right? It helps you go around the corner, but then you want to be able to accelerate. If the brakes stay there, no bueno.
oh, wow. That's great. So that leads into question number two, which is transitioning from military to success training, which is perfect timing It's like you've already heard these questions
I
before.
did not know that was the next question.
So, after 35 years of military service, you transitioned into becoming a success trainer, speaker, and coach.
Mhm.
What lessons from your time in uniform have translated most powerfully into your work with organizations and individuals today?
Mhm.
Well, I
So
think that whole thing about the anchor is a really good sample, but
right.
or
And so,
example.
and so other things on a ship, that you think about teamwork, right? Not everybody can do everything. There's a great joke on like YouTube where the captain and the engineer are arguing, and you suck as a captain and you suck as an engineer. Oh, yeah, I could be better. Let's switch places. And so they switch places, right? So the engineer is now navigating up on the bridge, and the captain is now in the engine room running the engines, and they're going along fine. And then finally, the call, the telegraph, ring, 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 rings up to the bridge, and it's the captain, right? And he goes, "I don't know what happened. The engines have overheated. I can't get them started. They're frozen in place. You're right. You're the better engineer." And the guy up on the bridge, who's the engineer, he goes, "That's all right, Captain. I think you're probably the better captain. The reason why the engines won't work is because we're aground."
And there you have it.
Everybody has their talents, and but nobody, like, you can't do everything. If you're the CEO, you can't be on the bridge and in the engine room. You have to let it go. You have to let people and be, because it's sometimes, particularly for founders that I've worked with, it's very hard for them to assume that somebody else can do just as good a job as they could do. So, those kind of things are so true. And then training, right? We practice, practice, practice all the time. In the Coast Guard, we're fortunate in that we get every day we're out rescuing people. But if there's a hurricane, our boats are out there, even if we're not rescuing, so that we can practice being in heavy surf, right? We don't want to the first time be out in heavy surf. So we'll actually go out and we play in the high waves and stuff. So we're ready to do it in the when the real deal comes. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That
Mm.
must be pretty exciting.
Yeah. We have boats that actually are made to right themselves, so they can capsize and they'll right themselves. And the way they make them, nautical engineers know this, but think, if you will, a ping pong ball, and you take some lead and you melt it in the very bottom of the ping pong ball. Now you put that ping pong ball in water. Now, no matter how you push it, that ping pong ball is always going to right itself, right? And so that's
Yeah.
what they do when they design these boats, is that as long as all of your windows are closed and you have a tight ship, right? That even if it rolls over in the heavy surf, the Coast Guard small boats, our motor lifeboats, are able to right themselves. Now, we don't try to do that because it does havoc on saltwater, on electronics. Not a good
Oh,
mix.
yeah.
So it's
Oh,
not without
wow.
damage. It's not without damage, but we don't lose the boat and we don't lose the people, right? But
Well, this is perfect that we're getting all the behind the scenes stuff here. So it is safe to take a Caribbean cruise.
it is very safe.
How true is that?
Yeah.
Oh my.
So those
Oh,
those kind of parallels, I think, really resonate with some people and help people understand that, put them in a different light from what they've thought about them before.
and do you find that people can relate to you so much better, like in a workshop or in a situation where they're listening to a keynote, that if you can just relate to, down to earth, everyday things, that people get it? Do you find that that's a better way to go about maybe putting something into your incorporating something that's everyday life into your keynote or
Yes. Well, and what I love most is that I like to also have somebody with a takeaway. So one of the things I always say is that you'll learn something that you did not know before you walked in the door for my workshop or my keynote. And
I
then
didn't
what
know
I
that.
do, yeah. And so then my question for you is, when I go to organizations, who's drowning in your organization? Because very often, and it's not going to be the loudest person. It's going to be the quiet high performer. And if you've ever been surprised by somebody sliding their resume and saying, "I quit," or their resignation letter across the desk as a CEO or as a senior VP by one of your top performers, they were drowning and you never knew it because you didn't look. Because drowning doesn't look like drowning.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because that's probably a statement that's true for anybody who you think is okay and they're not okay.
They're not. And you haven't checked in with them or yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sad. But anyway, okay, on to
Sorry.
the next
So
question. Wow. Okay. So there you go.
but with that, then people who are parents now realize to watch their kids when they're in a pool, for example, and so they walk away with not only something about to take to their workplace, but I'm hoping that saves a life, knowing that that's true, right? That people pay
Yeah.
attention on the beach and people pay more attention in pools, and so
Yes.
I hope I'm still saving lives, right?
Yes. I'm sure you are. So, the success principles in action. You're a senior trainer with Jack Canfield's Success Principles and even co authored Breakthrough Success, which you can share a favorite principle that you personally learned on during pivotal moments in your career and how you teach others to apply it in their own lives.
So I think the one that really is a string that went throughout my career that I absolutely love and still train to this day is called ask, 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 and be an asshole. So
I
much
knew
so
you were going to say that one.
I love ask, 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 right? And so often we stop ourselves. Nobody has stopped us, right? And so what I'll often say is, I want to take leave, I want to take vacation for Christmas. Well, I'm currently on duty on Christmas. Well, unless I ask, I'm not going to get that day off. But most people will, I don't want them to think that I'm not loyal. I don't want them to think that I'm not a team player, so they'll stop. But the whole point is if you ask and they say no, you're still working on Christmas, right? So it can only go, from neutral to positive whenever you ask. And the reason why I know this is so effective, as I got older in my career, I had a peer of mine call, and he goes, "Hi, June. I was wondering if I could ask you what jobs you're putting in on your dream sheet. We always put, what jobs we want." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm happy to share my dream sheet with you. Why do you ask?" He goes, "I'm not going to put the first three things on there because you're going to get them anyway." And so it got so pervasive that other people weren't asking because they thought if I asked, I was going to get the job, which is not a good thing, but
Well, and that's one of the things that you stressed with me when we had our first conversation, like after a long time, because we were both busy doing things, doing life things. But anyway, that was the first thing that you mentioned to me was the ask, ask, ask. You said, "Why aren't you putting ask, ask, ask into your program?" And I said, "Because I'm not, I think because I'm not the type of person who will ask. And I don't know why. I never thought about it, but it was even brought up to me today from a person who I'm working with, and we're accountability partners in a project that we're doing. She's amazing. And the first thing she said to me is, "Why aren't you asking?" And I said, I always feel like I don't want to bother people, or I don't want to, but what did you tell me? So go ahead and give it to me, June, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening to this who say the same thing. Well, I'm too shy to ask, or I feel uncomfortable. So what is that?
what is what
What
is
is it? What are you going to tell me? Why should I ask? How should I get over that? I stumped you. Yay.
help me? Well,
Why should I?
I think
Yeah.
part of it is a muscle, right? Um,
Oh.
the other thing I heard recently was so think about if you were, the Queen of England, when the Queen was still alive, or, do you think they don't ask for what they want? Do you think
Hmm.
there's a time where Kate doesn't say what she wants, the Duchess, right? And the thing is, no. Well, why? Because they think they'll probably get it, right? No matter what, right?
They don't have to ask. They have staff who just know, right?
Yeah.
Don't you watch Downton Abbey?
Ask like, hey, can I wear, blue to this? Or can I, you know what I mean? And, but they ask because they have a knowing that the person would probably say yes. And so how can we kind of put ourselves in that same mindset of what if it's a yes? What if it's a yes? And we have to let go of the rejection. Another quick story. When I transitioned over, listen to me. When I transitioned from the military to civilian, one of the very first things, there was a conference here in Cleveland for a women's leadership conference. And so somebody heard that I was keynoting. And so they said, you need to meet Robin. And so I went and had lunch with Robin. And she's like, you'd be perfect. And I'm like, awesome. She goes, I'll send you an email, da 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 da. Got the email and said, we're so excited to have you at our event. You will be a breakout session for the second session. And I'm like, wah, wah. I thought it was going to be a keynote. We never mentioned breakout. It was just so I replied back and I said, thank you very much. I'm so excited to be a part of your event. And oh, by the way, if you need an opening or closing keynote, I teach 64 different principles. I'm happy to jump in. She replies back, no, thank you. We already have our opening keynote and closing keynote, and we don't need anyone. I'm like, okay. Emails me back. Can you send me your bio? We're getting our program ready. Do. Yes, thank you. Here's my bio. And oh, by the way, should you need a keynote, she replies back, same reply. We already have our keynotes locked in. They've already committed and we've signed contracts. No problem. Can you send me your picture? Was the next email. So I sent the picture because I obviously didn't send it with my bio. And oh, by the way, and she's like, nope, we're still good. Thank you so much. For 2 days before the event, she calls. The closing keynote canceled. She said, are you able to do it? And I'm like, absolutely. Would you like it to be the same as my breakout? Would you like it to be an extension of my breakout or a totally different topic? And she said, a totally different topic. I'm like, no problem. Ask, ask, ask. It was one of my very first events. But I had to ask 3 times, so sometimes it's about persistence and not giving up.
Well, and you had mentioned earlier about the squeaky wheel getting the oil, but at this point, it wasn't the squeaky wheel getting the oil. It was just that you were dropping the bug in their ear in case things change. And we all know that, you can count on change.
Right.
That's one thing you can count on.
Right.
Is last minute changes.
So I became in the forefront, right? And it also happened conveniently that I was also local. So they didn't incur any additional costs. They didn't try to get on, they didn't have to get on anybody else's calendar. And so, and what happened was I had that keynote. I did my breakout session. I mentioned in my breakout session, oh, I'm going to be the keynote right after this session. And people turn, they go, we were going to leave. We're going to stay for your keynote now. So I actually benefited the event because after I did, and in fact, it was Be a Master Asker was the title of the workshop. And they stayed because they wanted to hear more. So asking can be beneficial to other people also, not just to you. So not asking, if you think about not asking, is selfish.
There you go.
How many more people benefited from hearing the keynote when they were not planning on staying? So
yeah, for sure. And the event itself benefited for sure.
Yeah.
Well, June, I'd love to keep this going, but I know that our time is coming to an end. So I always ask my guests before they leave for 3 golden nuggets to leave the audience with. So you're up. 3 golden nuggets.
Ask. No.
Oh, you're funny.
I need to do that.
Well, so one golden nugget is ask. I love it. Okay.
And be persistent, be persistent. It's a no. I was teaching this to somebody, and when I was teaching the MBA program at John Carroll University, and a person whose English is not their first language, he's from India. He said, when I see the English word no, I see it as next opportunity, N-O. And I'm like, I'm totally stealing that. I'm totally giving you credit every time I tell that story. But next opportunity, no means next opportunity. So be persistent.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, June, thank you so much for stopping by the playground. I had so much fun with you today. We even went on that big ship, that big ship that kind of swings back and forth. And we played a little bit on that ship, but there's a lot of things I didn't know. So there you go.
I was going to say, what's your favorite thing on a playground?
Well, my favorite ride on the playground, and it's in the book, in the story, is the merry-go-round. I love the merry-go-round.
Very good.
So yeah, it's one of those things where you just run really fast, holding on to the handle, and then you jump on and then you let it spin. I love that. And it totally prepared me for life. You know that.
Yes. Hold on.
Yes. Hold on and
Just
enjoy the
hold
ride.
on.
Hold
And
on and enjoy the ride.
that's all
So
right.
thank you.
Thank you so much, LouAnne. As always, you are such a pleasure. As my niece would say, I'm throwing you love. She takes a little heart and then
Aw.
throws it to people. So throwing you love.
Oh,
Thank you
that's
for
so
all you
nice.
do.
Thank you.